that. But the big news of the week in the United States is the retirement announcement of Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, and Biden taking the podium with Breyer to announce he will keep his campaign pledge to nominate a black woman for Supreme Court. Here was that announcement in case you missed it.
I've made no decision except one. The person I will nominate will be someone with extraordinary qualifications, character, experience, and integrity. And that person will be the first black woman ever nominated to the United States Supreme Court. It's long overdue in my view.
So that was a ridiculous, silly show, but there was a more subtle moment that made it even more ridiculous. So Breyer took the podium before Biden closed, and Breyer took off his mask and left his nasty mask on the podium. And then Biden concluded the event and picked the mask back up and handed it to Breyer, and then Biden touched his face.
I'm not going to take any questions because I think it's inappropriate to take questions with the justice here. He's still sitting on the bench, and I'm going to give you the mask back. But you'll have plenty of opportunities to get me later today and for the rest of the week.
And so Breyer apparently had two masks. I don't know. He had a backup, I guess, but follow the science, indeed. I don't know if Dr. Fauci...
What a farce.
Yeah, I don't know if Dr. Fauci had anything to say about that one. But as far as the retirement announcement, that was the other piece of this. It's not just that Breyer is retiring. It's how that news was released or leaked. And you'll hear all sorts of talk of respect for Breyer and gratitude that everyone keeps expressing in making this replacement. But it has all the look of that classic Democrat shove out of the van that Christine Blasey Ford and others got.
Yeah.
And it's not as though, obviously he wasn't purely shoved out. Breyer has been expected to or has been talking about retiring for some time. So it's not
incredibly old. How old is he?
He's 83.
Ugh.
And that's another piece of that press conference. I think that his judicial quote unquote philosophy is garbage, but at least he's a coherent speaker. You listen to him speak and compare it to Joe Biden, it's night and day. And Breyer is older, actually.
Yeah.
But this news came out on Wednesday before Breyer himself had even said a thing. It got released through multiple media reports through some sort of unnamed leak. And you can speculate as to why that may have happened. Perhaps it is just a rush to be the first to report the news, or perhaps it's to box Breyer into this decision and make sure he can't back out. And whether it's Breyer's political calculation or the powers that be, whoever that may be, the political calculation of those people, one would infer that this is clearly made with the expectation that Democrats are going to get wrecked coming up in the fall. And if they lose Congress in the fall, it doesn't matter who Biden picks, that person is not getting through, at least for a couple of years. And then if they lose the presidency in 2024, that person is getting through never. So I'm sure there are a lot of political calculations and expectations factoring into this decision. But we know, per Biden's announcement, we are going to get a historic nomination, and the names are already circulating. So who do we have as potential options so far?
All terrible, I suppose. Some worse than others, but I think that it's going to end up being this Ketanji Brown Jackson character. And she did go to Harvard, although I'm sure she didn't get in on her own merits. And she's widely thought to be Biden's top pick. She was elevated from her previous post as a judge on the federal district court in D.C., and she was there in 2013 to 2021. She went to Harvard for college and law school. She was an editor on the Harvard Law Review. And then she clerked for Breyer.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
In the other news from the court this week, the court will be considering challenge to race-based admission policies at Harvard and the University of North Carolina, I believe. So
really,
the obvious irony of, well, it's going to be an affirmative action selection on the court, potentially with the court saying affirmative action is unconstitutional, or at least chipping away at that. But I wonder in this case, as an alum, would she have to recuse herself? She has an interest in a direct connection to Harvard.
She'd surely have to recuse herself, right?
I don't know. I don't know what sort of practice would go along with that, but okay.
In terms of her rulings, so in September 2019, I read through all of her rulings. Most of them were unremarkable, but this might be of interest to people. She issued a preliminary injunction in Make the Road, New York versus McLean. And this was going to expand fast track deportations without immigration court hearings for undocumented immigrants. I hate that term, for illegal immigrants. Yeah. And she found that the U.S. Department of Homeland Security had violated the Administrative Procedure Act because its decision was arbitrary and capricious, and the agency did not seek public comment before issuing the rule. So that's going to be a taste of the kind of judge she'll be.
Okay.
The next chick is Michelle Childs, Judge Michelle Childs, South Carolina U.S. District Court. She has a somewhat unremarkable career, but she apparently is going to be a little bit more right-leaning than other candidates. She, when asked if the Constitution was a living document, she said no.
Wow,
is shocking.
Really? Because I saw a headline that Lindsey Graham endorsed her today, and I thought, is that Lindsey being Lindsey because he voted for Sotomayor, or is there something I don't know about her? Maybe there is, but as far as I'm concerned, that's probably a disqualifier for Team Biden. If she does not believe in a living constitution, she's
going
out.
to be immediately disqualified, as should this next candidate, merely based on her name, Leandra Kruger, California Supreme Court Justice. And she served under Obama as acting principal deputy solicitor general from May 2010 to June 2011, argued 12 cases in front of the Supreme Court. It's going to be more of the same with her, but I am really trying to, I'm going for Sherilyn Ifill. I don't know if that's how you say her name, but she's the least qualified candidate. And this is going to be the best laws. And she's a law professor and president and direct counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund.
Okay.
And her Twitter is, I think we watched a clip with her last week. Her Twitter is filled with like, it's like she's not even a lawyer. I was like, wow, she is totally uncredentialed for this position. She must not be an attorney, because it's like grammatical errors and, crude racial statements on her Twitter. She basically says whatever she wants all the time. And then I looked into it. I was like, oh, she's definitely an attorney. So, but yeah, I wonder if it's going to be her. But I think it's going to be candidate number one, which is Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Well, I have my own theories about some dark horse candidates. No pun intended, Joe. I meant, but coming up in a minute. No, these are the serious ones, and then there's some less serious ones. And another possibility,
Kamala,
which we'll get to in a second. Yeah, Kamala. Don't mispronounce. That's racist too.
Is it
Kamala?
I've heard her say her name in various ways.
I'm sure she probably has. Yeah. All right. So I just want to speculate a little bit about how this will play out. Biden says he'll make a nomination by the end of February. So we're going to look at a little bit of time here. And Breyer is going to stay on the court until the end of the court's term in June. But as far as I'm aware, there's no reason the process can't start and his replacement can't be confirmed in the meantime. So I wouldn't expect it's going to take until June. But you're not going to see this person seated on the court until into the summer. But what are the likely vote scenarios here? One would have to assume near total Democrat unanimity, of course. But the Democrats have had trouble, obviously, lately getting their domestic agenda passed. We've had defections from Manchin and Sinema. However, I would not expect the same thing to happen here, even if Joe Biden nominates an actual terrorist for the court. And the reason I say that is because we have Manchin and Sinema's voting record on Biden's judicial nominees so far. Now, granted, these are lower courts. They're not as high profile. But so far, Manchin and Sinema are both 100% confirmation votes for Joe Biden's judicial nominees. So that's a factor. Also, Joe Manchin has been asked about what he would do if there was a nominee who was far more left than he is. And he answered with reference to the makeup of the court. He says it's not going to change the makeup of the court. The court right now is pretty much a 6-3 court. So no matter what the philosophical beliefs of the person may be, that's not going to change the decisions or the makeup of it, which to me is a nonsense answer. 3 ideologues who don't follow the Constitution is still 3 too many. So I wouldn't just say, well, the status quo is 6-3. That the status quo is not worth maintaining. We want the constitutionally faithful on the court. But okay, Sinema hasn't made substantive comments as far as I've seen. She has released generic statements about, I look forward to giving the candidate a fair hearing and blah, blah, blah. But nothing about how she might approach say, a ridiculous ideologue nomination. And the other factor I wouldn't assume here is unanimous Republican opposition. Romney, Collins, Murkowski, potentially, all the usual suspects. I would expect at least a few of them to get in line in the name of decency and unity and all of that. And then, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, Lindsey Graham, remember in 2009, Lindsey Graham voted with 8 other Republicans for Sonia Sotomayor's confirmation, and she's a crazy lady.
That's right.
Even if you get a Sotomayor clone.
Right.
Yeah. I would count on at least a few Republicans to bail the Democrats out, even if Manchin or Sinema did go rogue. So I would say that even if he nominates a crazy, you could probably count on that person getting on the court. To Manchin's point, does that matter? Does that drastically shift what happens at the court? No, but we want sanity to win the day. We don't want to sweat these decisions and to think about. Yeah. And by sanity, let me be clear. I don't mean what I agree with. I mean the Constitution as written. That's what I mean. I hate this breakdown of, well, this is the teams. It's not an institution that's designed to have teams. It's an institution that's designed to look at the document as written and federal law as written and apply them. That's it. It's not a team thing.
I know.
But it is now that it's a political institution.